This is the Horror Scouts podcast, and this episode, we're celebrating our 100th episode. Let's do it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. As I just said, we are celebrating episode number 100 here at Horror Scouts. A round of applause for everybody. Yay!
We did it.
My name is Mike. I am one of your hosts and troop leaders, and I am joined as always by your other two hosts and troop leaders, Brian.
Hello.
And Nick.
Hello.
And Nick, note he said, as always. You didn't miss it.
Fuck you. Let's come to hot with this. It's going to be one of those nights. Okay. I'm ready.
Not that we're not casual normally, but this is going to be a very laid-back episode. No, well, first let me get through the rigmarole. If you're checking us out, you're checking us out of one of two places. One is youtube.com/@horrorscouts, or number two is on a podcast service of your choice for the video, for the audio only version. Either way, thank you for joining us. If you're watching us on YouTube and you end up liking the episode, give us a like, leave a comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Normally I would say spoiler warning, but we are not doing a review this episode. We're just having a little party for ourselves to celebrate 100 episodes. For anyone who's been around since the beginning, they know that there's been large gaps here and there. So it has taken us quite a while to get to 100, but we always kept the tally rolling even after a 2.5 year break or whatever it was. So yeah, we're just gonna do a little bit of looking back on stuff we've done, and then talk about a couple of categories like our favorite things we've reviewed, our least favorite things, stuff we want to go back and check out again, stuff like that. But anybody have any thoughts off the bat? Just thinking about having done this 100 times now.
I mean, mostly I have watched so many more horror movies than I ever did prior to doing this podcast. I mean, we've said it all before, but I've always enjoyed horror movies, but I didn't necessarily seek them out before doing this. They're just if somebody wants to throw on a horror movie, I'd watch one. But a lot of the zeitgeisty ones, or a lot of the formative, older movies, I had huge gaps for that I've been slowly filling in addition to doing the podcast. That my vocabulary of horror has gotten a lot larger over the last handful of years. And I'm definitely learning what I like and what I don't like. And it's pretty polarizing, it seems like.
Cool.
It's funny. I could actually say some of the same thing, that I've watched a lot more horror movies since we started doing this, but I was coming from a very different spot where I watched a lot more than Nick did to start with.
Yeah, your version of a lot more is very different than my version of a lot more. I'd say me at watching my most when we were trying to do that thing, 2 or 3 Octobers ago, of tallying how many we watched. I think when I was cramming for the month of October, I may have scratched the surface of your average month.
Well, yeah, but my average has even gone down because I've been trying to do some other things in life. But especially now that it's nicer out and, do other things. But I've also found I've explored more into some of the cultier things. Some might say they're trashy, and some of them are very much so trashy. Vinegar Syndrome releases that 4 people have ever seen before, and have gone into exploitation flicks and more into giallos and Italian horror in general and things like that. And also found more things. There's not a lot I dislike aside from things we've discussed here already. It's things I like more than others, but I could find most things enjoyable, and even the trashy ones. All right, I watched one yesterday that was a revenge exploitation flick thing. I put it on while I was finishing work, so I was this is going to take 0 brain power and can be out of the background. It was called Blood Games, and I was right. It would take 0 brain power. It was surprisingly decent for 80s exploitation flick, but I mean, it was sleazy. It was trashy. It was exploitive for the women, a lot of TNA, but also they were the heroines of the movie and defending themselves. So it was like, okay, like you're getting very like opposite ends of the spectrum from the same set of characters and actors.
Girl power, but naked.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. Like, but I find that stuff also like fascinating. Like, even now, like you can't make this stuff, even if it's going to be, you know, video on demand only or whatever. Like nothing domestic anyway, gets quite that trashy and nasty, unless it's going to be a rated X and an adult film or something. But there's just something about some of those 80s films. Again, they're not necessarily horror, but some of them are. But that are just like, wow. Who the fuck made this and why? Where did you come from with that? And also, how did you get away with it? Like, that's what is shocking and I think fascinating to me on a lot of those. Is how did you pull that off in so many different aspects?
Yeah, that makes me think about, I mean, one that we fairly recently did. What was that insane movie where the people...
The Sadness?
Yes, thank you. And again, foreign, like that, no one would have done that here.
Yeah, no, that was, and even for a lot of the stuff I watched, that's still one of the nastiest films, like, of quality. Like, there's some films that would be maybe that nasty, but don't nearly have the production quality that one had.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that was a lot.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't write it on my want to give another watch list, but it's kind of in the back of my head that I want to revisit and see if it bothers me as much the second or more or less the second time around. Phases me, I should say.
Yeah. So, Brian, I'm curious. I'm sure this is impossible. It's a very odd number question, but what would you say your collection has gone from when we first started back in 2016 to now?
So actually I could say it's grow. I can't give hard number. I can tell you my current numbers actually, quite accurately too.
Ooh.
I've been having fun with spreadsheets. Both your wives should be proud.
Nice.
So yeah, because side note, I don't know how these people I follow on Instagram or whatever track their collections. Theirs are even like larger than mine. Some might use Blu-ray.com. I can't seem to get a login for it. But otherwise, like, how do you know what you have? So when I started this, I started a Google Sheets, and it's just grown into almost like a database. But it was lockdown that started me up on really building the collection, because I always had some movies. But then I was like,
you had more than some movies before the pandemic, my friend.
Nothing like this.
No, that's true. But you had a fair amount. I've helped you move many times.
Yeah,
You've had
like
a decent collection for a while. I mean, not what it's grown into.
Yeah, not like
now you have a library.
Right, fine. But it was having that extra income being in lockdown for so long. And I was like, hey, I could buy more of these. And in doing that, I built up ones I knew and stuff, and then started being like, oh, this one has all these sequels, or I could buy this series or start exploring more. So it was especially from like 2020 through 2021 that it grew the most. Now it's a matter of what am I allowed to spend? Is there anything new coming out that I want to get a pre-order on versus buy some old shit? So I have 2,105 titles. And so I don't know how many, I have to recalculate how many pieces I have, because there's box sets and things like that. And some are multiple copies. That's 2,100 titles, 277 4K UHDs, 1,786 Blu-rays, and 128 DVDs.
That's
Which
actually
the DVDs seem high, but I think it's because Mallory has some. This includes Mallory's movies, which was a much smaller collection. But she has like DVD sets of old Cary Grant movies or some classic movies that have like 8 or something in them. But yeah, so those are those numbers, and I found some other ways I could break this out as to what I have as horror, et cetera, et cetera.
Crazy. Yeah, I was going to ask. I was curious how, because I know you've done plenty of upgrading from DVD to Blu-ray and 4K. So I was curious how many DVDs were actually left.
So I'm trying to get rid of those. So there's, you probably can't even see in the shot. There's like 3.
No, we can't see the shelf in the shot.
No, but there's about 4 sections of the shelving back there that have DVDs on them. All but like maybe half a shelf's worth have Blu-rays or other formats. I just haven't upgraded them yet, but I'm slowly doing that. And I'd say at least a third of those are from Mallory's collection. So yeah, that's why it's mostly Blu-rays. I'm not doing upgrade everything to 4K. I'm doing things I know I go rewatch. And maybe occasional things here that I know are going to look spectacular in 4K, and probably like, I haven't bought it yet, but Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. I know they're going to look phenomenal in 4K. Do I rewatch them all the time? No. But when I do, I want to see them in that format.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then, new things, obviously, buy that way when I can.
Yeah, I think my DVD/Blu-ray collection fits in like 2 of those little cardboard file boxes we have like in the attic somewhere.
Yeah, I have a few in my living room, but it's mostly concert DVDs at this point because I feel like I can pretty much stream almost anything else I'm looking to watch. And I think somewhere in my basement there's a small box of VHS and DVDs from back in the day, but I got rid of the rest of it.
One of my friends has actually a couple of my friends have made their own little Plex servers, but my one friend, he still buys some of the discs to rip himself, and then they end up sitting like a bit in his garage. And his wife's she wants me to come over and pick from them what I want so they can get rid of the rest. And
there you go.
He doesn't want to let go of them because he's like, what if I need to re-rip them? And I'll be like, they'll be at my house.
Right.
So we haven't
down the street.
Yeah, we haven't actually done that yet, but I feel like it's coming. So hopefully I can fill in some more from that even. I said, I'm not taking DVDs. But anything else, I'll take from you.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, how about we take a... What's up?
You didn't answer the question that you posed to us of what have you learned? What's changed since we started?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a fun journey. It was unfortunate that we had to take a long break at one point, but whatever. We're back. Yeah, it's just been a lot of fun. I think for when we first started out, we did reviews and what we called Campfire Talks, which was just like we picked a topic to discuss. And when we first started out, I think we actually only lasted like 9 episodes doing a review and a talk in the same episode. And then they were like, no, this is too much. So then we alternated. But eventually, I mean, you guys remember, eventually it got hard to come up with new topics at some point.
Yeah.
But, I think it's been long enough since, because we stopped doing that before our big break. So we only did 44 episodes, up to episode 44 doing that.
Wow, so we've been doing it longer since we came back than we did before we paused.
Yes.
Yeah. Huh.
Weird. Doesn't feel that way to me. Huh. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah. That's interesting. I do miss the Campfire Talks because I like just bullshitting horror. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like our format, but I don't have anyone to talk about these things with, especially, I mean, even you two aren't the best people to talk about physical media with, but like, I'm kind of by my onesies. Right. Me and Instagram people are like the only people that get it. So, but even other just general horror things, like, so my buddy Rich, he watches stuff with me, but he's not in the scene, if that's a way of putting it. He doesn't really keep track of it or anything. My sister has a kid now, so she's way far behind on what she's been trying to watch. And that's about half of my crew at home that watches horror things. So
Yeah, I think we should get back to that, and I'm sure we can come up with new topics. But it'd be fun to revisit some, especially I would love to do maybe the first one we do, is to revisit our list of starter horror movies. Like, if you're getting someone into the genre, what do you start them with? Because now we have so many more to pick from.
Yep, that's a good idea.
So
I like it.
But yeah, I don't think my tastes have really changed since we started. I'm still averse to old 80s stuff.
Missing out, man.
I don't know that my tastes have changed so much as developed. Because again, I don't think I watched enough to clearly define what I liked in a horror movie versus not before. Because I'd only seen like the big obvious ones. But I think we all know I definitely prefer a slow burn. I like a quiet, subtle thing. I don't like big, ridiculous twists with bullshit endings, which is like still the bane of my existence. That hasn't changed, but I've learned that from doing this.
We haven't had a slow burn in a while, have we?
No.
I mean, we've had slow, but
I'm pretty sure we'll all be talking about that one very soon.
Oh, yes. There's actually a little factoid that I read about that recently. Because the Blu-ray came out, and I think Bloody Disgusting, they've been doing it recently over the past few months, or I don't know, maybe this year, where anytime a movie comes out with like behind the scenes footage or whatever, they'll talk about it, like what they learned from, like what we learned about blank from watching the extras or listening to the director's commentary, which I think is really cool because, you know, if you're streaming it, you're not getting any of that, which I think is a shame. So yeah, I'll peek into that. So the movie we are referencing recently came out on disc and had a director's commentary. I think that's the only extra there was. I mean, what else are you going to do? But
yeah, right.
So let's take I got a couple of factoids, little dates and stuff here to remind everyone and ourselves kind of our timeline. We started the show with episode number 1, March 15th, 2016.
Wow.
And our first review was The Witch. What a way to start.
Started strong. I went to the theaters to see that one. Can't say that's happened too many times since then.
Our campfire talk was just get to know us. Just, hi, it's us. We're learning how to do this. Well, not quite learning. You guys had been doing a podcast already. So
yeah, we'd already been doing it for a fucking decade.
Yeah.
Not literally, but a long time. 5 years? 6 years?
Yeah,
we started in 2011,
5.
I think.
Yeah, that was 20. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that was quite a way to kick things off.
Yeah.
And then what we'll call Horror Scouts 1.0 ended a little bit over a year later on June 20th, 2017 with episode number 44. And that review was A Dark Song. And our talk was about video game horror.
Nice.
Okay.
I gotta look up A Dark Song. I don't quite remember what the hell that was. Oh, yeah, the summoning circle in the house. Gotcha.
Right. Yep.
I have it on a shelf back there. I should have gone through this list and marked how many of these I own. Or how many I don't own. It probably would have been.
Yeah, that'd be easier. Just look at your worst list and figure you own only about 25% of those. And then you have the rest.
I like how you put that.
I'm probably right, though.
No, I just looked at what I marked as the worst, which there are only 6. And I don't own any of those.
All right.
I have some standards. They might be below yours, but I have some standards.
That's fair.
So yeah, we ended June 20th, 2017, and then we didn't come back with Horror Scouts 2.0 until April 5th of 2020 with episode number 45, and the review was Color Out of Space.
Again, came back swinging.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
hell of a start.
It's a weird one to come out of retirement for. I like it.
And then what we'll call the YouTube era, which was this year. We started with episode number 90 on January 16th, and we reviewed Pearl.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we like starting off on the right foot.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just revamp every 2 months, just to guarantee it.
Guaranteed to get some winners.
Yeah, right?
Is this list that you sent us in order?
I think it is.
Yeah.
God, some of these feel way out of place to me. That's funny. The things that like I remember versus have 100% forgotten. It's like, wow, that was that long ago.
Yeah, I almost sent it to you alphabetically, and I was like, no, let's do it in order.
Yeah.
And then the last 2 little things I have is our longest episode was episode 88, and not a surprise because we reviewed Stranger Things season 4 in full.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I mean, that's...
So that was an hour and 45 minutes. And then our shortest episode was episode 17, which was just a campfire talk about our dream mashups. And that only lasted 26 minutes.
Wow.
That's like barely a podcast.
I know, right?
Yeah. Crazy.
Unless I messed up that number on my spreadsheet. But yeah.
No, I mean, I believe you.
Yeah.
Well, but I agree. That seems really short. But
So the total number, according to the list you sent us, is 86.
Of films.
Of which, of which there's Stranger Things season 4, Creep Show season 1, and Bly Manor. So we've done some that were, series or multiple episode things, but 86 movies.
Yeah. And one of them, the 2 babysitter movies were together on an episode, and the 2 birthday movies were together. Bloody Birthday.
That was a mistake.
Me. Hey, a fun gimmick.
Yeah. I was like pulling teeth.
So yeah, that's all little numbers and factoids I have. Let's jump into our categories.
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you want to just want to start big and go with our favorites?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not?
Cool.
Sure.
That's in line with us starting each section of this podcast. Start strong.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Start strong, start positive. Let's do it.
So I asked the guys to pick their top 5 films we've reviewed. And I'm sure it was difficult, and there's runners up and all that sort of thing. But I still, I've got 6 and I need to knock one off.
I mean, I have 4 solids, so I can trade you a 4 for a 6 if you want.
Yeah, well, we'll see if anybody has one of the ones on my list, and then I'll just get rid of it. Just sneak it up.
I'm sure we have to have a couple overlap here.
For sure.
Our tastes are not that different.
Yeah. Do we want to go kind of around one at a time, or do we want to go through?
Let's one at a time.
Okay.
That way, if there's overlap, we can kind of just discuss as it happens.
Right. Okay. Cool. Does anybody want to go first?
Sure. Because you guys are all going to guess which one I would pick as my number 1. Not that we did these like numerically, but like my number 1 with a bullet would be The Eyes of My Mother.
Yep. Saw that coming.
Yeah.
yeah, like you all know that. If you've been listening to the show at all for any period of time, that is kind of like my touchstone reference for a movie done right. It's slow burn. It was, first directorial debut, really low budget, no name brand actors, black and white, and subtitled. Like, had so much shit that could potentially go against it on paper, and then to be like so subtle and disturbing and just unsettling, which I think is the horror that I've determined I like. If I had to put a category on it, it'd be unsettling. And that one gets under your skin. It stays with you. I fucking love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a good one. I've for years been meaning to show it to Paula, and this just never happened.
I showed it to Mallory. It didn't go well.
Did you really? Why did you do that?
Because at the time I was trying to get her to watch more horror stuff, and I knew it wasn't, some gory slasher. It wasn't your standard horror flick, and I figured because it was slow and just kind of creepy and a little disturbing. Apparently it was a little too much.
Okay.
I learned my lesson.
Yeah. All right.
Cool. Brian, do you want to go?
So, yeah. So that was my number. Well, if I was ranking them, which I know some of us did and some of us didn't, I had that as my number 3 in the top 5. My number 1 was The Dark and the Wicked. That one just, again, it was a modern horror movie it didn't feel like a modern horror movie, but it was shot like one, the production value was like one, but it was just creepy, intense the entire time. And it just slowly ramped up until its finale. And the whole thing was just, there wasn't a happy ending. And I think that's one of the things I like in horror movies, because it is so far and few between, that it's just like, nope, everyone's fucked. Like, it's a dark movie, and we're going to keep it that way until the credits roll. And it hit everything so right. I actually got to rewatch that one recently because my friend hadn't seen it. It's like, oh, we're watching this. You're going to love it. Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Some great shit.
Very cool. Nice. First one I have on my list, I didn't do these in any order, but Green Room.
Yep. That's number 2 on mine.
Yeah. Green.
That's in a tie for one of my other places because I suck at short lists.
Yeah, that one was just so raw. It had one of the most cringy moments we've seen in a long time. And like the fact that it had recognizable faces in it too, rest in peace, Anton Yelchin, Imogen Poots and Patrick Stewart,
Patrick Stewart.
It's
so
it was like too good and too intense for as like Hollywood as it was, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Air quotes.
Yeah, I have a hard time classifying it as a horror movie. I actually had this conversation with Val before we started here. I'm like it's in my top 5 easily. If I was giving it a number, it would have been 2. It's like, but because of all the things you just listed, mostly because fucking Picard is the big bad guy. Like, I have a hard time making this be a horror movie and not just like a thriller. But I mean, it has all the hallmarks of a horror movie, and we reviewed it on the show, so it's got to count. But yeah, I struggle with what it is. But yeah, fucking such a good movie. That's also on my really want to rewatch this list.
Yes, that is definitely on my rewatch list.
Me too.
It's been far too long.
Yep.
So I don't know if we want to, how much water this holds, but I just looked it up on IMDb and it's listed as crime, drama, horror. I don't know if crime would have been my top one. So I think of
crime is
actual
heist movie.
Yeah, right.
Or not.
Like
I would have done
killing
movie.
people in a club.
Thriller, horror, drama. I mean,
Yeah.
drama I find is a hard tag because if anything has a slow point in the movie and there's people acting, it's a drama.
It's
like,
dramatic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's like cheating, but they tag horror as one of the three. So
It's funny. I'm looking at the posters on IMDb, and I am pretty confident that the font they used for that movie is the same font we use in our logo.
I might have talked about this at a time, but there was a poster made for it that was put out. I want to say it was by Mondo Rip. That was a green arm, but it was diced up to look like the Black Flag logo.
Yes.
And it said Green Room. I have the postcard for it hanging on my fridge down here because
Nice.
I couldn't buy the poster. But
So
it was
good.
So good.
Nice. Very cool. All right. Back around to Nick.
Nick.
All right. My next is Relic. You mentioned it earlier. I loved that movie. Like, just the way it dealt with dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever it was, and aging and death, and then making the house be the scary place was just so brilliantly done. It may have been more impactful for me than you guys because I was living with an ailing, 90-year-old lady at the time. But goddamn, that movie hit hard, and it definitely left a mark, and I loved it. That was a really, really good movie. Again, kind of subtle in what was horror about it, and it wasn't like, it wasn't full of jump scares. It wasn't overly bloody or violent. I definitely wouldn't call it a slow burn. That was a more intense movie, but not big.
No.
And that works for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great one.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys brought that one up before, because that was one of those ones where, like, I saw the title, but I couldn't really remember what it was. But when I realized, I was like, oh, right. Yeah. So thank you for, I won't need to, that was one of my 6, but now that you've said it, I can just let it slide.
There you go.
Yeah, that's on my extended list as well. So my next one, I put the Black Coat's Daughter.
Okay.
That's on my want to watch it again list.
That was another one I got to rewatch because my friend hadn't seen it. So that's why I like that my friend Rich is less experienced, because it's an excuse for me to rewatch movies. Like, I rewatched The Color Out of Space like 2 weeks ago, for the same reason. But Black Coat's Daughter was, again, slow burn, subtle, in a very different tone than Relic, but it was a little slower. It was creepy for most of it, but subtle, and things started to spiral and build. But just the tone of that movie, the pacing, and love Emma Roberts and Karen Shipka.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
I think I got that right. Yeah. Were just great in their roles in that. It's just, that's what, like, low budget horror movies in the 80s were like, what gore effects can we pull off with our budget? Low budget horror should be the Black Coat's Daughter, because there's minimal effects, like, toward the end.
Yeah, it's like one location, 5 people.
Yeah.
Just tell a creepy story.
Yeah, I mean, Dark and the Wicked, I guess, was a similar fashion, right? But, like, just pulled it off so beautifully.
Yep.
Nice. It's funny. I'm looking at my list, and my list is very, like, in the theater, general public. Like, most people would have a chance to see this or would be aware of it. But I don't know. I guess it's just the ones that stand out to me. But Don't
It doesn't
Breathe.
take away your street cred, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But Don't Breathe
Yeah.
That's
is
a
on
good
my
one.
list for sure.
That was a very good one.
Oh, yeah. It's
Yep.
great.
Yeah. The twist when you get inside the house and go in the basement, just like, that was such a rug pull.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
oh,
Yeah.
Done so well.
yep.
Yeah, that's like they get the general public in for the first part of the movie, and then it jumps into like the actual horror fan, like
Yeah.
into that pool, different group of people.
That worked.
Yeah,
It's kind of like what Barbarian tried to do, but just in a very, very different way.
true.
Yeah, I didn't love Barbarian the way everybody else did. Did I miss something about that?
No,
Like,
I mean, I liked it.
It was fine.
It was weird, and we didn't review that, did we?
No, we didn't.
But I feel like we definitely talked about it because, yeah, I liked it. It was an interesting twist. I mean, obviously, there's some things you have to like let go of to accept the latter part of the movie. But I think I haven't gotten to rewatch it, and it's one that hasn't come out on disc, interestingly enough, despite being released in theaters. But it was another like rug pull situation. I think just the shock value of what the fuck was happening is what sold a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Are we back around to me?
Yeah.
Okay. Keeping in that vein of like a movie that does a full rug pull, Come to Daddy.
That's on my. We need to revisit.
So fun, and you got 3 different movies in one there, all of which were interesting and could have held their own weight. But just putting them all together with like such a powerhouse, weird fucking performance, loved it.
Yeah,
absolutely loved it.
That was such a bizarre movie.
Yeah, he likes doing some weird shit,
right? My next one was Eyes of My Mother, which we discussed, and I agree with everything Nick said. So my next original one is Deathgasm. I mean, full-on metalhead, splattery horror movie with all the sophomoric camp. Didn't quite go fart jokes, but other sophomore camp. I mean, I rewatched that like a couple of weeks ago, and it still makes me laugh. The gags are still great. Like the metal is legit and not what like Hollywood thinks metal is. So yeah, that just hits all the right notes for me.
Yeah, that was perfect for you two at the time. It was like I felt like you guys you'd watch that and go straight into recording your other show.
I mean, they had a discussion as to whether or not cupping a microphone is legit for delivering vocal performances. Like, yeah, you're speaking my language. It's awesome.
Cool. Another one that was like we were like hoping it was going to be good, and then was pleasantly surprised by was Blair Witch.
Yep.
I really enjoy the reboot, or I don't know what word.
It was a sequel.
Sequel?
I guess it was title-wise, it was a reboot, but I mean, it did follow the first one, right? They were going back to look for the kid in the corner.
Right. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that was... Fuck, man. That was... really lived up to the franchise name, and I just remember the sound design being so good, and the whole concept of like the forest like shifting like a big puzzle. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah,
and they paced out revealing the witch really well. It wasn't like, oh, here she is right at the beginning, and now you're used to her.
Right. I mean, according to that interview,
it might not have been her.
It came out, we still haven't met the witch yet. Well, so
that's
curious to see where it continues to, if and when it does.
I wish we had bookmarked I guess it was part interview, part like theory, fan theory, whatever it was. Like that was just fascinating as the movie was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like the movie was great, and then you read like all of the tie-ins between the two, and it's like, holy shit!
Yeah,
that's impressive.
Yeah. Do you guys remember the marketing rug pull that they pulled on everybody?
Yes,
it was originally marketed as The Forest.
I remember that,
and then at the last moment, I remember hearing that at the premiere. It was people went in to see The Forest in the lobby of the theater. It was all banners and posters, The Forest, The Forest, The Forest. And they went in, and in the time that they went in to watch the movie and came out, they had redone the whole lobby to everything said Blair Witch. And I was like, that's just so freaking clever.
Right.
That's so cool.
Especially like nowadays where it's like harder, I feel like, to pull shit off like that and keep secrets.
Yeah.
Somehow this only holds a 5.0 on IMDb out of 48,000 reviews.
Because people don't like the Blair Witch, man.
But
People are hard on it.
I understand not liking the Blair Witch Project, because that wasn't as good. It's still not as good, but like...
But, okay, so if you didn't see the Blair Witch Project, or if you hated that, going into this, either A, you wouldn't have seen it, or if you loved that, it's a way different movie, or if you didn't see it and watched this one, it doesn't quite have that same weight or context. I don't know. I feel like maybe that overlap isn't huge. Like, I didn't like the first one. I watched this one because we were going to, review it, and then turned up absolutely loving it as number 5 on my list.
Okay, yeah, I haven't read the reviews, but like I'm looking, Blair Witch Project has a 6.5. So like maybe people didn't like the change. I don't know. That's weird. Very
Did
weird.
anybody see Blair Witch 2?
No.
I never saw it. No.
Okay.
That has a 4.0.
Yeah, I've heard it's terrible, but
Is that even canon anymore? I don't think so.
I think it's not.
But there's also the Curse of the Blair Witch and Shadow of the Blair Witch. These are movies.
I had no idea there were that many.
Yeah, I thought there was only 3.
Me neither. This is news to me.
Yeah. Crazy. Huh. All right. Well, that's my 5. I have runners up, but my runners up also fit into a trends topic for later, or things I've learned about me. So we can shelve my remainders for now.
Okay.
So I didn't hard pick a 5 because there were so many of these movies I've liked, and there's ones I've gone back to more than others. But for instance, I'll just name drop 2 of them: Wrong Turn and The Void. But I think if I had to choose, it would probably be The Lodge.
Ooh.
Blair Witch is very close there, but I think I have to go with The Lodge.
The Lodge was my runner-up.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that kind of follows along with 3 of the other 4 of mine, that it's dark the whole time with not happy endings.
Yeah.
Apparently, I'm even darker than I thought I was. But yeah, that was. Again, not quite a rug pull so much, but there was some good twists in that. But that also started off somewhat literally blowing your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And who was that?
Yeah, that came in with a tone.
It was like
That was a
Courtney Cox.
Alicia Silverstone, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was just the twist. The couple, actually, there's 2 twists in that. Like, you think something supernatural is happening. Oh, it's not. It's one of the sickest pranks you've ever seen. But also, haha, that's going to bite you in the ass, kids. Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, that was cool. Okay, so I've got to yawn real quick. Sorry, this milkshake didn't wake me up as much as I thought it would. Okay, I got 2 more. One of them was very random, but now has become a standard. Maybe not every year, but every other year I would like to do it. Rare exports.
That's in my Christmas horror rotation. Yeah.
Rare exports is so fucking good. Like, if anybody's listening who has not seen Rare Exports, please check it out. It's I forget what is it, Norwegian? I think.
Believe so.
Scandinavian or Scandinavian adjacent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, the people who did Rare Exports, their latest movie is out now called Sisu. I'm excited to watch that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like some old military guy just completely eviscerating a bunch of Nazis. So that should be fun.
It is Norwegian, yes.
Norwegian, okay. Yeah, just as a Christmas horror movie, it doesn't get better because it's not like granted, last Christmas we had
Violent Night,
which was fun, but that's more
So
of your standard fare. This is This is off the beaten path Christmas horror, and it's
Oh yeah,
great.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
good. And then, so there's just one left for me, right? And that's it.
Yep.
This one was, again, another surprise. This was a straight to streaming joint, but because of the lockdown and all that sort of stuff. But again, pleasant surprise was Prey.
Mm.
The latest.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a lot of
Predator
fun.
that was great.
Like everything, the concept and everything was like, understandably would leave most people going, I don't know. You know, the Predator's not even in the title, and it's a prequel by hundreds of years. I mean, I was always down for the idea of it being like Predator versus Native Americans, and like, you know,
Right.
like Hunter versus Hunter. Like that was cool,
Mhm.
but it could have went really bad. I believe it was a Hulu film.
Yeah.
But yeah, pleasant surprise. A lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, that
in
was a good one. Mm-hmm.
Another one that I know that didn't get a theatrical release, but also isn't on disc, and I know it's on Hulu, but like that was otherwise a big production company's movie, like
Yeah.
you know, big director, like literally every other Predator movie's on disc, except that one. Really annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a
Mm-hmm.
Dan Trachtenberg film. You know, he did 10 Cloverfield Lane. He's directed on The Boys, stuff like that. So, Black Mirror. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
So those are some of our favorites that we've reviewed in the past 100 episodes. Now let's move on to something we're good at. Tearing things a new one. Let's do worst films we've reviewed.
Want to count down and I'll say it at the same time?
Yeah, this category is also known as the saddest of kangaroos. If that doesn't make sense to you, we created one of our merit badges called the Sad Kangaroo for films that were just absolute trash because it came from the first time we thought to do this came from an Australian film, which I'm sure is on our list. It's definitely on mine. I have 3, and it's one of mine, Charlie's Farm.
It's the 4th movie we watched.
Ugh.
We came out swinging with The Witch and Deathgasm and How the Mighty Fell 4 episodes in with Charlie's fucking Farm.
Yeah, an Australian slasher film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's number 3 on mine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was fucking bad. That
Mm-hmm.
Tara Reid, right,
Mm-hmm.
was
Yeah.
in it for some reason.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Oof.
That whole okay. Just for comparison, right?
Mhm.
There's 48,000 reviews for Blair Witch, so a lot more. That has a 5.0. Charlie's Farm only has 3.8 thousand, but it has a 4.6. Like,
Yeah.
I know they're going to be weighted a little differently. Blair Witch has a lot more, but seriously,
It's everybody's friends and family of the people who produced Charlie's Farm watched it, and they felt bad giving it zeros, so it had to average out in the
Tara
fours.
Reid tweeted, "Hey, could you guys go
Yeah.
do this?"
Yep.
Ugh.
Like,
All right, so the worst movie, I mean, someone might as well say it, it's Skinamarink. It's obviously Skinamarink. It's not a movie. It's absolute, utter fucking trash. Like, it's no contest. That's the worst movie across the board, and I won't hear any arguments otherwise.
horror or otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, just period. Just it's the worst thing that's ever been produced that I've ever had to suffer through.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what half the people who saw it think. It's funny how divisive it is. Like I said earlier, some company said, yeah, let's put out a disc on it. And the thing that was the little factoid that I thought was, I don't know, not interesting, but like, oh yeah, that makes sense, that the director said in the commentary, is that there's only about 10 and a half minutes of screen time with actual people on screen out of the whole movie.
And he's proud of that?
I was actually going to ask the same thing.
No, he's not proud of it. He was just like, I guess people, because he sees the comments, and he was saying that, like everyone complains that it's all just door frames and ceilings, which it is. He says, so he went and did the math, and it's only about 10.5 minutes of the kids, or I guess the mom at one point, actually on screen.
What a garbage fucking waste of time. I'm getting mad sitting here. I didn't have to watch this tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, no, that one really pissed me off.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about it. It is a whole bunch of static and door jams and ceilings and kids not being scared out of their minds when they should be.
Yep.
Yeah. It should be, at least if nothing else, it's got to be inspiring a generation. Anyone who's ever been like, I don't have what it takes to make a movie, you literally do. And you cannot do worse than that. So hopefully there's that.
Well, to save Nick's blood pressure, Brian, let's move on to the next one.
So, yeah, Skinamarink and Charlie's Farm, my first two of the worst. My next one is... So I have 4 others, but the next one is going to be 31.
Oh.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. Same.
Fuck, that was painful. It was painful in a different way than Skinamarink was. But actually, might have been more painful than Charlie's Farm. My memory doesn't go back that far, but it was, if not more, it was at least equally as painful. Like, there was... I don't even remember what the fucking point of it was, but, like, it just wasn't good. Like, we know Rob Zombie, he's gotten worse as a director. He's against picking good actors, at least after Devil's Rejects. And, well, that's not true. He had Malcolm McDowell in the movie, but, like, barely used.
Yeah.
But, like,
He used him better in Halloween.
Yeah. The violence wasn't even as good as it should have been. The only thing I liked about it was, like, the aesthetic of the scenes, the grittiness, like physical grittiness of the movie. Like, I liked the aesthetic of it. Everything else about it was just fucking trash.
Yeah, that movie was awful. Yep. It was on my list. I'm glad you mentioned it. So far we've talked about... So I know, Mike, you said keep this one shorter than movies we liked. I had 5 on here. We've talked about 3 of them. We can skim over the other 2. Fucking Pod.
Oh,
Pod's on mine.
Oh, I remember you hating Pod.
I hate that movie. Yeah, that was my most hated movie until Skinamarink. Like, for the same reasons that we didn't like Charlie's Farm, which was every character is an idiot. There is no saving grace about how anyone acts relating to anything. It's the typical slasher thing of don't open the door, don't run upstairs, don't whatever. It's every decision they make is stupid. And then, like, whatever reveal or action takes place is bad. And the dialogue is subpar. Like, everything about it was bad, but all the character interactions were just, like... Look at what they're doing, or look at what any human would do, and they do the opposite. Like, the thing that sticks out with me that I have referenced a billion times for being the lore librarian here is, like, there's a light switch to the basement. The power is on in the house. You don't need to walk in there in the dark. Straight up. I can't get by that. That's bad writing. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love the term lore librarian. I'm so going to keep using that for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
The other one on my list, which was not that long ago, and we put it off for so long. Well, it didn't put it off. We just waited and waited and waited for years to finally watch this film. Sky Sharks.
Okay. Oh, see, I didn't even put that in my worst films list.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm glad it's being mentioned here in worst films because, like, objectively, it was a bad movie and we all made fun of it a lot.
Yes.
However, I think in context of budget and what the movie was, there are other things that made me a lot angrier than Sky Sharks did, which is why it's not making an appearance on my list. It's a bad movie. I don't argue with you putting it there at all.
Yeah, me neither.
But the other ones on my list made me like,
Yeah. At least
Nah,
Sky Sharks knew
that
what
one-
it was.
Wait, by the
right.
time we
Sky
got
Sharks made me disappointed. The other ones made me mad.
listen, by the time we got to Sky Sharks, I expected it to be bad. Maybe not quite as bad as it was, but not great.
Yeah, I could not have expected it to be as bad as it was because, like, I was promised Sky Sharks, and we really didn't get them, and that's problematic if that's your title. That was, yeah, you know what? That movie made me mad. Fuck that movie. You're right.
Like,
Yeah,
I was more entertained while watching that movie. Maybe it's because, again, I watched it with a friend. Maybe we were having a beer. But also, like, we laughed. We were exclaiming at the screen. I was entertained watching that. I can't say there are any of the other movies we just mentioned.
yeah, like,
That's fair.
I would have been okay with it because it is ridiculous and it knows it's ridiculous, but, and like the digital effects are so crazy, but parts of it just didn't make sense in parts and I was lost. And I was like, wait a minute, if I just knew what they were trying to get at, be it as silly as it would have been, I would have been a little easier on it. But apparently we gave one of the longest, if not longest, review of the film ever, according to the director, or one of the
Yeah, I think it
filmmakers.
was, yeah. He appreciated the amount of time we put into reviewing the movie because it was he didn't word it this way, but it was probably more than the amount of time they put into writing it. Maybe not making it, but writing it.
Yeah.
So my other two, which we can kind of gloss over. So one was actually a relatively recent review, and that was Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, yeah.
there it is. That's my last one. Yep.
Fuck that movie so hard.
Fuck that movie. Yep.
For so many different reasons we went over not that long ago.
Yep.
But yeah, that was
my number 5.
that.
That movie was awful. Like, don't make it a Texas Chainsaw movie. It had nothing to do with the originals. It did not hold up well. All of the
dumb
every
characters.
plot point of it was terrible.
Yep.
The characters were awful. You brought back a legacy character only to kill her in a pointless fucking way. Like, everything about that movie was trash and didn't need to be made.
Yep.
Completely agree with you.
So my last one, maybe we can call an honorable mention, was Haunt. Because I remember somewhat enjoying that while I was watching it. But the more the three of us talked about it, the more that movie fell apart so hard that I'm like, no, wait, this movie sucked. And then it was getting so much like praise and love on the social media, and it got this nice special edition release with like buttons. So I'm like, this was one that, much like Pod, was the characters all did dumb shit.
Yeah.
And I mean, for the first and foremost, showing up at a haunted house on Halloween where there was no line, and like, oh, cool. And they say, oh, put your cell phones in this lockbox. Like, okay, do I need a ticket? No. Okay. Those are 3 big red flags to any other living
The
person.
reddest of flags.
Yeah. I go to haunted houses, a bunch of them, every October, and there's fucking lines. You have to buy like fast passes if you want to get in and do something else that night. You don't show up anywhere. If I ever show up to one of those and there's nobody there, and I look and it's supposed to be open, we're turning and hightailing out of there. Because I've seen that movie. I'll make better decisions, but it's still not going to end well for someone.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yep.
You guys mentioning Texas Chainsaw made me think of another kind of reboot remake sort of movie. It wasn't as bad as these other ones, but I feel like it kind of fits the category with like a big disappointment was Halloween Kills. After the first one, the first of the new ones, which was like, oh, okay, hey, yeah, sure. And then it was like, oh. And like, I still have yet to see Halloween Ends.
I haven't watched Ends yet either. I'm gonna probably force myself to do it at least by the end of
I'm gonna-
October.
I'm gonna let you tell me if it's good or not.
I know it's not going
'Cause
to be,
otherwise-
which is why I put it off.
Otherwise, I'm not watching it. Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, that was a runner up when I put Texas Chainsaw on my list. I was like, I could kind of just put slash fucking Halloween on here because yeah, same thing.
yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, now that we got that off our chest,
Again,
I suggest another category of movies we want to go back to, and the guys got back to me and were like, "So do you mean movies we want to give a second chance, or movies we just want liked and just haven't had a chance to go back to yet?" And I said, "You know what? It's up to you. However you want to take that."
Yeah,
I have both.
we've talked about most of my list at this point, which the ones we've talked about so far: Green Room, Black Coat's Daughter, Blair Witch. I would put the rest of my top 5 on there because I don't ever rewatch movies. I've only seen all of them once. I think you mentioned The Void as well because that's on here.
yeah.
That's a rewatch. Like I know we were all really amped for that to come out based on like the trailers and teasers on it and whatnot, and then having to wait for it because it kept getting delayed. And the plot left a little bit more to be desired than I think we all wanted going into it. But the visuals on that,
So
the
good.
effects,
Yeah.
just the tone and aesthetic of that whole movie are top notch. And like that's one of those ones where I'm willing to let go of lore a little bit to just like let it wash over me
Yeah.
and enjoy the visuals. I would definitely watch that one again at some point.
I've watched that a couple times since then, and you should. It's still good.
Yeah.
Cool.
So ones I want to rewatch because I was maybe unsure of. So my top one is The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
I like that one, and I do. That's on my list. I just haven't seen it in a while.
So what I remember liking it, but having a problem with the ending, and I don't even remember specifically what the ending was and why I had a problem with it at this point. But I remember that being a thing. So I want to revisit it and see if my mind has changed on it.
Was that Brian Cox
Yes.
and Emil Hirsch?
Yes.
Yeah.
And this one, and A Dark Song, which came up earlier because that was one of our earlier reviews or something. I remember being a little
That was
mixed
the
on
last one we did before the gap. Yeah.
Yes. So I want to revisit that. And then some of the other ones are just ones I liked a lot but haven't gotten to go back to, like Censor. I remember loving that. Not that it was that long ago. Psycho Gorman. We all love that. Haven't gotten back
That was a
to
lot
it.
of fun.
Come to Daddy, I want to rewatch because that was just bonkers.
I want to watch that one with Val. I think she would like that one a lot.
Yeah, Mallory's not going to care for that. I know that so much. But one I actually probably up there with Autopsy Jane Doe I want to revisit is The Editor. So that was supposed to be a spoof of Giallo films. And I think it used Giallo loosely as in actual Giallo films and Italian horror, which are not actually the same thing. But now at this point, I've watched a lot of actual Giallo films and a lot of actual Italian horror. So I feel like I will have a very different view on this movie than I did the first time. And I think I had
sense.
a different perspective than the two of you from knowing some of those things going into it, but I'm more experienced now. So I wonder if the movie will hold up better.
I need to look at screenshots from that movie because I don't really remember it all that well. I'm picturing Censor when you say The Editor, and obviously I know that's not the same movie here.
Yeah, that's fair. That's. I just ran through like 6 movies, but those are most of what I had written down.
Cool. Yeah, so, Autopsy Jane Doe's on my list. The Eyes of My Mother. Even if I can't get Paula to watch it, I do want to watch it again. The Witch. I love The Witch, but I don't think I've watched it since it first came out. And it's just, I just want to check it out again, and it'll be fun to go back and be like, oh, this was Anya Taylor-Joy 1.0. Like, she's such a big star now. And it's like, this is where, I don't know if this was her very first thing, but at least this is where most people got to know her.
Exactly.
So it'd be cool to go back and do that. And also the guy, I can't remember his name, but the guy who plays her father is so good.
The dude with the best voice on earth. Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
And what else do I have? The Girl with All the Gifts.
That's on my list as well.
So good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one, so I wanted to check that out again.
Yeah.
That was a book, right? Maybe
Yes.
I'll read that.
So Mallory came this close to reading the book because I guess the description of it doesn't sound like a zombie movie. I know it's not technically a zombie movie, but she had the book on from a friend and she was kind of sitting on it waiting. And I'm just kind of sitting there keeping my mouth shut and I wanted her to read it. And then I don't know if she remembered me talking about the movie or something. And I was just like, no, wait a minute. This is zombies, isn't it? I was like, no, not exactly, but kind of. And so she But since she did like The Last of Us, and
I mean, this is proto The Last of Us.
it is. It's
like,
fungus-based resurrecting dead people. It's a little more zombie-like action. So I don't know if she'll care for that.
But it's essentially like the expanded universe of The Last of Us before The Last of Us. Like,
yeah. So we're on the same page as thinking about that. So,
yeah.
And actually, to go back to you about The Witch, that, according to IMDb, that was her first starring role, but also movie acting credit. She was uncredited in Vampire Academy as some like extra character, but yeah, The Witch is her first movie role.
Wow. Shit.
Yeah, so that's where it started.
And that was like, God, that's an impressive first role.
2015.
Especially for the whole, like, the way they spoke in that film was, like, very true to the way people spoke back then. It wasn't just, okay, it looks old-timey, but everyone talks the way they do now. Like, that was a task to be part of that film. Shit. Yeah.
I'd watch that again.
Just stop it at the first ending, and you won't.
Yeah, so that was my trends / discoveries of things that I don't like is movies that go too far trying to explain and then they don't need to explain. Which The Witch is on that list. The Lodge was on that list. I feel like there's a billion other movies that would be on that list. The Lodge should have ended with the kids in the car when she's approaching them. That would have been a much better ending than the ending that you got. But there's I feel like half the movies on this list, I could be like, it was great until, and then just cut it here. Fucking Hereditary is probably the most egregious example of that. Not that we reviewed that on the podcast. It came out during our gap, but man, what a dark fucking movie that does such a good job giving you the horror is the family drama, straight up. It's dealing with the loss, with the death of the little girl. And we all have talked about how amazing Toni Collette is in that for her reaction when she discovers that the next day, and just that fucking wail. That sense of dread is incredible. Do I need to see her crawling down the walls later and having a cult at the end of it? No, that ruins the movie. You completely undermine what you set up. It's fucking stupid. And that seems to be a trend, is having to find some sort of supernatural jump scare thing and not just sit on the drama. And The Witch is a really good example of that. That movie is 2.5 hours of perfection where you don't know if there is a witch or not, or if it's just isolation and puritanical views. And then they have to fucking cement what it is. If they just ended the movie when she put her head down on the table and cut to black, it would have been a perfect movie.
I agree. That would have been the best ending. I think I would have even accepted the second ending where she gets asked, does Doth want to live deliciously? And then she goes to sign and end it after that, before the whole witches in the woods.
Don't fucking float in the woods, man. The effect wasn't that great, and at the end of such a subtle movie with almost no effects at all, just ruined it.
She just put that on. First of all, the movie is actually only an hour and a half. It's that slow of a burn. But she just put that on a T-shirt for you. Don't fucking float in the woods. And it's just symbolic of everything you just explained.
Yep. Exactly.
That's the back of the
Wait,
shirt. The front just says lore librarian really tiny on the breast pocket.
Did both It's come out while we were on a gap? Speaking of floating, were both of those?
It must
while we
have,
were...
because it would have been on my favorites list.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I noticed Raw, which we all have talked about, is not on here. So we must have watched that extracurricularly as well. No,
I guess so.
Wait.
I would have
When did we restart?
2020.
Yeah, so it must have just missed it. So it part 1 was 2017 and it chapter 2 was 2019. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would have been too late to come back to it
Yeah.
at that point.
Raw was 2016, though.
Okay, so before we started.
Possibly.
it must have been.
Right.
Because we started in March.
That's
Yeah.
a good one.
That was a great one. Like that jumped to mind when I was thinking of like, oh, favorite horror movies. Like, oh, we definitely covered that. Nope. We didn't.
Huh. I'm looking at the list right now. It came out. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me see. We started March 15th. Came out limited in the US in March 10th. Wow, this is a long list.
I wonder if we had a problem watching it somewhere.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there.
Yeah.
The only other trend that I've noticed is generally much like, we always talk about Decibel Darlings on the other podcast that we did of like, the big media critic never agreeing with anything that they pick as their favorites. And, case in point, Skinamarink from critical reviews is getting lauded as like the scariest movie ever and one of the best things to come out in decades. And we all hate it. Fucking Babadook was the movie before that. That was all the rage. I couldn't stand that one.
Mm-hmm.
So the trend is I still don't agree with the critics. Hasn't changed. Doesn't matter if it's metal or fucking movies. Like if it shows up on one of those sites, I'm probably not going to like it.
Yeah, one thing that I feel like has been more popular since we started, and it's not necessarily movies, but the TV world has been taking a stab at classic IPs. Where in the past, like they wouldn't get the chance to do that, but there's been plenty of stuff where TV is trying to adapt classic IPs, and for the most part, none of them have lasted. And I know there's still stuff yet to come. I think there's an Exorcist show they're working on. I mean, I know Gordon Green is going to be doing an Exorcist trilogy now that he's done with fucking with Halloween. But yeah,
I'm surprised he got greenlit on that after Halloween.
David Gordon Greenlit. Sorry. One that's it's not an actual IP. It's just Stephen King in general. But I loved Castle Rock, and I'm so sad that it only had 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. I mean, especially because it was different every season. So it's not like, okay, if maybe season 2 didn't do as well as season 1, it's not like we're going to try and keep going with stuff that people didn't like. It would have been something brand new. But
yeah, that was enjoyable.
Actually, speaking of TV real quick, and I know Nick will like this, apparently Mads Mikkelsen is still actively trying to find a home for someone to bring back Hannibal. And I think him and, who is it, Brian Fuller that did the show?
Yes.
I think they're teaming back up again for something new coming soon, but they're still trying.
Man, talk about a show with an aesthetic. God damn it. That was one of the most beautiful shows I've ever seen. Oh.
Yeah, that was cool.
It's cool. It was very cool.
So what's up, Ray?
It was really hard to think of trends because I guess I haven't been trying to like think back because it's nothing I've been paying attention to.
Mm-hmm.
I think generally though, and ironic is not the right word. I think they actually touch on this in Scream 6 and exemplify it is that violence has gotten a bit more graphic or just brutal. Like, look at, despite what we think about generally about Halloween Kills, the kills in that movie were pretty savage, and easily the highlight of the movie. But even the one before that, even, Scream always had a lot of stabbings and stuff, but I feel like 5 and 6 particularly like up the violence factor a little bit. I mean, these are just ones off the top of my head, but I know The Sadness was a foreign film, but and they tend to be a little more violent anyway, but that's an extreme example. But I think overall, when they're not trying to just do jump scares, the violence has gotten up a little bit, and that just might speak to the apathy of Americans, but or they're just pushing that rated R rating a little further more. But I also know I think Nick, I don't know if we talked about this on the show recently or just generally, but we were talking about Evil Dead Rise, the whole contortion moving, bone cracking type moving.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been doing this a while, and I think I don't even call it a trend because it's something that's just stuck for some fucking reason.
I don't know why.
I don't either. Like, it was cool when it started, but now you're like, oh, you're doing that now. Like, sure, it can be an unsettling sound, but there's a lot of sounds that are unsettling. Frankly, I think squishing is more unsettling sound if done the right way.
I feel like a realistic stabbing sound is just about as effective as it gets. Just like the plunging of a medium-sized knife into a chest is about as, like, for sound design, if you nail that one, you're good.
Yeah. And I also noticed I was catching up on some trailers today in reference to the next/last thing we're going to discuss. Trailers that use like a noise or tapping sound and they just repeat it the entire trailer, sound to be creepy, and they speed it up at the end. And there was a movie, the trailer for a movie called Cobweb, that it's one of those, like, I want it to be good. It looks kind of creepy, but it also looks like it might be a movie we've seen 17 times already. But
I think that one has to get a pass, because isn't the premise of that he's hearing noises in the wall? Like, isn't that the whole thing? Is he's hearing, like, tapping in the wall? So, like, they have to use tapping.
Yeah, but it's the way no, but it's the way they use it. Like,
okay,
like if you watch it's not just like, oh, they're knocking.
I have not.
Right, but it's the way they use it in like a more rhythmic fashion. Like, somebody speaks tap tap tap, and then like somebody else speaks tap tap tap.
All right.
Like, even when it's not shown on the wall. There was another trailer I watched too that someone's tapping on like a glass jar with their nails, and it keeps repeating through the trailer even when it's not there. It's like, okay, enough. Also, and this maybe isn't just horror trailers, but what's with like cold opens to trailers, or like 4 snippets, like trailer starts now. It's like, just show the fucking trailer.
Oh, don't get me fucking started. Like, luckily,
you need to trailer the trailer.
Luckily, that's not like when we're cutting trailers, we're not like, we might be asked to create that thing, but it's not actually created as part of the trailer. It's a separate thing that they'll tag on wherever the studio throws on whenever they want. But yeah, that is very from us on the trailer side of things. It's like, come fuck on. Like,
but I want to know from like the studio's perspective, there has to be a reason for it. Like,
it's for the TikTok generation, for the just scroll through to the next thing.
You need to grab
You
people.
need something quick and snappy to grab people's attention. So 4 flashing ridiculous things, and then trailer starts now, they've already got you. And then you might be inclined to watch it. If it just slow fade into the beginning of whatever it is, you're on to the next video already.
All right,
it's just something quick and snappy.
You answered my question.
Yeah,
but like, don't put
you don't
it
have
on,
to like it. It's
then,
just attention spans.
But then don't put it on the YouTube video.
Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah.
Like, I clicked on the YouTube video to watch this trailer. You don't need to grab me. I am here. I am grabbed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have my attention.
Yes.
I know. It's
Just
like,
that should be limited for social media only.
Yeah.
yeah, it's bad. The attention spans suck. You need to, like Nick said, catch them early. And it's also like, over the past couple of years, and the company I work for, we've been doing more digital only campaigns. So specifically Instagram and TikTok spots. Like, it used to just be, okay, you have the theatrical campaign, and then you have the quote unquote home entertainment campaign when it comes time to sell the discs, and then eventually, also streaming. But
Right.
it's the rules are kind of the same, and you don't, you stick with the same vibe. I mean, if a movie didn't do well, you try a different direction, but it still feels like a traditional classic advertisement. Now, all the fucking rules are out the window when it comes to these freaking social media stuff. And like for everything though, it's like the first shot has to be a recognizable face. Like, even if you have a cool idea that it's like, okay, we'll get it. Even if like, okay, I have a cool idea and it will grab people early, but it has to take a few shots before we get some. It's like, no, you have to start on a recognizable face or else people will blow right past it. And it's like, fucking hell. And then not to mention everything needs subtitles now because apparently the younger generation can't listen without reading it.
So I'm going to put a caveat on that one. On social media, I like subtitles because I never put my sound on. My sound is off on my phone unless I'm like, oh, this is a music clip. I'm going to turn it up. But like, I can get that a little bit. I mean, I guess if I'm going to sit and watch the rest of the trailer, I'll turn my sound on. But for other videos, I just keep it off and read the subtitles because the sound's not important.
Yeah, I could see that for like stuff that's not advertising something where the sound is so important. And it's like...
Right.
Well, like there's the new Jennifer Lawrence movie, No Hard Feelings.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, my Instagram feed that's been showing up a couple times a day. I've watched their trailers a couple of times, and I've never turned the sound on because I know what her voice sounds like. It's just dialogue, and I can read it and see what the scene.
Yeah.
Now, if I was to watch a horror trailer, first of all, I'm not going to watch it on Instagram because it's the wrong orientation. I'm going to click YouTube. But even if I was, I will turn the sound on for that because sound's more important there. I know there's some creepy noise somewhere in this thing, and I don't want to read like door creaking, slow heavy metal music playing. Like, I want to hear the slow heavy metal music.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy metal music intensifies. So good.
God, I can imagine that spiderweb spot is just over and over again. Knock, 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 knock.
Yeah, right.
Just across the screen.
Knocking sound repeats. Knocking sound repeats. Like,
yeah. Yeah, social media is killing us in the trailer biz.
Yeah.
It's very
period.
unfortunate. Yeah.
End of sentence. Social media's killing
Yes.
us.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now that we've had fun looking back on our last 100 episodes, let's take a couple minutes to look forward and see where we might be headed. So our last category is our most anticipated movies. We may or may not review them, but just stuff that's coming that's got us excited. I'll go first, and it's coming out very soon. I don't think it's out yet, but I think we mentioned this at the top of the last episode, but Talk to Me.
That's the only one on my list because I don't look ahead. But yeah, I'm very much so looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's on my list too. That does look very good.
I'm being a little...
cautiously optimistic.
Yes. Yeah. I don't want to get too excited. Did that with Evil Dead Rise, and although it was good, I was a little disappointed because I got too hyped for it. So this definitely has that potential of just being like, all right, but it seems cool.
Yeah.
It looks good. Yeah.
And it's
I'm excited for
A24,
that one.
so.
Right.
Yeah. Their track record is
yeah.
good enough that I'm willing to go in more or less blind.
Oh, the A24 logo in the trailer alone.
Oh, that was good. That was good use of cracking bones.
Yeah.
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 This is kind of cheating because it's out now, but I haven't gotten to see it yet. Is The Blackening?
Yeah.
That looks really funny.
Dude. Yeah. Yeah.
That just looks like...
If that comes to streaming before we do our next episode, that should be the next one we do.
Yeah.
Because I think we're all looking forward to watching
that looks
that.
cool.
That looks so good.
Yeah, I read it.
That looks...
It made I think it broke even maybe its first weekend, which was good. You know, it was
Nice.
up against, there's so many big movies in the theater right now, like Avatar and Little Mermaid and all that shit. So it made like 10, 15 million, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I think they
For
don't.
that kind of movie.
Yeah, I think it only cost them like 13. So yeah,
Nice.
good for them.
Sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks fun.
It just finished filming recently, and then speaking of Anya Taylor-Joy, she was at one point tied to this film, and I had forgotten that had changed, and she is being replaced by Lily Rose Depp. But I am still excited to see Nosferatu.
Mm. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'll definitely check that out. I forgot about that too. So I'm terrible at keeping up with things. So in the hour before we recorded, I caught up on a whole bunch of our Discord trailers, and then went to upcominghorrormovies.com and skimmed through that. And in the latter, I came across one that's in post-production called Totally Killer. It stars Julie Bowen and Kieran Shipka.
Okay.
And it sounds very much like The Final Girls kind of thing, where there's so this killer from the 80s has reemerged and is like torturing Julie Bowen. And so they end up time traveling, they don't say how, back to the 80s to try to stop him back then.
Okay.
So like,
Okay.
that's just called Totally Killer. So it sounds like, I'm hoping it takes that comedic vibe and not just, I'm assuming they're not going to take a slasher and time travel both seriously at the same time. Then you're off to a bad start. But just the premise sounds very much like The Final Girls. That movie is great. So I'm very interested in that. I think it's going to be late this year, possibly early next year. At this point, it says in post-production, but
cool.
That intrigued me.
The last thing I listed is TV, not a film, but our next dive into why am I blanking on his name now all of a sudden? Fuck.
Yeah, and because you did that, I am too. I know you're going to say the House of Fall of Usher. Flanagan. There you go.
Back into the pool of Flanagan with Fall of the House of Usher. I believe that's coming this fall. And I am down for anything he does.
Yep.
Maybe I'll actually watch that. Because we all know I'm bad at TV, but or we could do one of our things, we review an entire TV show. We can.
Hell yeah. I mean, we.
If it'll make you watch it,
we did Bly Manor, so.
Yeah.
I thought we were half. I thought we decided after doing Stranger Things we didn't love that idea. I was half kidding, but I will also do it, obviously. Another one I came across is called Suitable Flesh, which is apparently loosely based on an H.P. Lovecraft story. It stars Heather Graham and Barbara Crampton and Judah Lewis, the top three named people. And the one-line synopsis says, a psychiatrist becomes obsessed with one of her young clients with multiple personalities, which is very different, actually, than the line I read on Upcoming Horror Movies. But the teaser trailer was just like a bunch of clips that involved a lot of sex and violence, and sold me. So I think unfortunately it's going to be it's a Shudder release, but it could be good, it could be crap, but it has from the makers of Reanimator and From Beyond. Okay, that just sold me.
Okay. Yeah, right. Cool. You're in.
I am in. It says makers, not I don't know who actually makes. It's not the same director, but yeah. All right, I'm sold now.
I'm just remembering, and I don't know if it's a movie or show, but related to Nosferatu. It's called The Last Voyage of the I don't know how they pronounce it.
Demeter. Yeah.
So the ship that Nosferatu came over on. That looks pretty good.
It's kind of funny you have that coming out and a Nosferatu movie.
Yeah.
I mean, very different approaches, obviously, and directors and such, but yeah. What does this do to release? It does not say. Oh, it does say August. This is the Voyage of the Last Simulator.
Oh, shit. Okay. That is from... now I'm definitely in, because it's from the same guy who did The Autopsy of Jane Doe, and also one of my favorites, Troll Hunter.
Ah, yeah. Troll Hunter's great.
Hell yeah, dude! Troll Hunter was incredible. Nice.
Oh,
All right, yeah.
He also did Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
What, did Del Toro just produce that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so it's got a pretty solid track record.
Yeah.
Andre Overadol. Weren't they supposed to
Nice.
be making a sequel to Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark?
Yes. I haven't watched the first one yet.
There you go. I clicked upcoming for Andre, and he's back for Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. It's in pre-production. Did you see that quote from a few days ago from Del Toro where, like, I think he's planning on focusing mostly on animation for the foreseeable future? Because, he just did Pinocchio, the stop motion movie, and he had some strong words for the current state of animation and how we need to fix it and save it.
I think I saw his words,
Huh.
his quote about that. I did not read further that he was thinking about sticking with animation. But speaking of him, have you watched the TV series he did, The Cabinet of Curiosities? I think it was a Netflix series.
We watched the first episode, maybe the first 2
I
episodes.
can't remember now.
Guess it didn't sell you that hard.
It was a little bit hokey. He didn't do it. He produced it and like curated some directors to do various short stories, and it kind of had a creep show sort of vibe to it.
I was going to
where it
say
like
it's Del Toro's creep
it's a
show.
little bit hokey.
Gotcha.
Like it didn't sell me on it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, I watched a couple of them. But
All right. So
Yeah.
I'll move down the list. I got to bump Pinocchio up the list. And Nightmare Alley, the last movie he did before Pinocchio, which is a remake of a film noir from, I don't know, it's the 40s, 50s, something like that. So another one, I guess a last one that it's somewhat out now. I don't know how we can watch it yet. Is Mad Heidi? I'm very interested in checking that out. So if that's able to be streamed sometime soon, I'm gonna throw that in for a possible review.
cool. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
It's going to be campy and going to be ridiculous, and probably the lore librarian, lore police. Will have issues, I'm guessing, but
Probably.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for our episode 100, a celebration. We did it.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to do this. 100.
To 100
Yes,
more.
Exactly. Cheers.
Cheers.
This is
I have an
my
empty tea mug. Cool.
milkshake here. Yeah. So, like we said, we'll reboot every few months, so we're sure to have some good films. Hopefully, sad kangaroos will be few and far between. But yeah, that'll do it. Thanks for joining us on our first little campfire talk in a very long time. As we said before, we'll talk about it off air and possibly scheduling some new ones. So we're not doing a review every single time. We'll see. We'll wing it. So thank you for joining us. Again, if you're watching us on YouTube, please give this episode a like if you enjoyed it. Leave a comment. we'd love to hear what, your favorite films have been over the past 5 years, or stuff you haven't liked, or even what you're looking forward to. Maybe it's something we haven't heard of and we can check it out as well. Subscribe to the channel, click the bell for alerts, blah, blah, blah. You know how it works. And if you're listening to the audio version on a podcast service, we'd always appreciate a little rate and review there as well. It helps out the show. If you want to follow us on social media, we're at horror_scouts at both Instagram and Twitter. And as we mentioned, we have a Discord channel. There's an invite link in the description. So come join us over there to chat and just chat, check out new trailers, what have you. And that'll do it. So we'll see everybody next time for episode 101. Now that we're in the triple digits. Awesome. Cool. All right. See everybody later. Bye.